Times Now with me, Priya Behel. The top story that we are tracking right now on day 46 of Iran war are the tensions that are sharply escalating in the region. After issuing a strong warning, US President Donald Trump came out to say that American military has started its blockade of all Iranian ports and coastal areas. The blockade came into effect around 7:30 IST yesterday, targeting Iranian ports and coastal movement in one of the world's most critical energy routes. In response, Iran has now issued threats targeting ports across the Persian Gulf as well as the Gulf of Oman. Earlier, remember, Donald Trump had said that he is vowing to completely block the strategically crucial Strait of Hormuz, raising fears of major disruption to global energy supplies. These developments come after talks in Islamabad over the weekend spectacularly failed to produce any peace agreement between the United States and Iran, despite mediation efforts being done by Pakistan. The situation remains highly volatile, with growing concerns of further escalation in the region. So what exactly does it mean when US says that they are going to blockade the Iranian ports and coastal areas? So by now we are all familiar with the geography of the Strait of Hormuz. It is currently being monitored by more than 15 warships from the United States, including USS Frank E. Peterson, one of the warships that's currently there in those waters, as well as USS Michael Murphy. US has deployed its ships in this particular area. US forces are threatening to intercept vessels entering or exiting Strait of Hormuz. US has consistently been saying that we want joint control of this particular marine choke point with Iran. The enforcement zone, it is the entire coastline of Iran. Trump has been threatening this, saying that if Iran doesn't agree to US's deadline, the red line that they have drawn, that cannot have nuclear weapons ever, this is how they are going to punish it. The key focus of this particular blockade being threatened is Kurg Island, Iran's economic lifeline, and Bandar Abbas, a major port for Iran, as well as Chabahar, Iran's only oceanic port, is also going to be under US's scrutiny. The freedom of navigation is going to be impacted for vessels that are transiting Hormuz to and from non-Iranian ports. So what exactly has Trump threatened to do to Iran? Listen in.
Can't let a country blackmail or extort the world, because that's what they're doing. They're really blackmailing the world. We're not going to let that happen. And you know, the amazing thing is, we don't, can you believe this? We don't use this strait. We don't need this strait. We have our own oil and gas, much more than we need. We have more oil and gas than Saudi Arabia. Think of this. We produce more. Saudi Arabia, and add Russia to it. Many ships are heading to our country right now as we speak to load up with the best. We've been called this morning by the right people, the appropriate people, and they want to work a deal. They would like to work a deal.
Is it your anticipation, Mr. President, that other countries will assist in this effort to blockade Iran and those?
Yeah, other countries are going to also.
Which countries, sir?
We don't need other countries, frankly, but they've offered their services. We'll let it be known probably tomorrow.
Has the blockade started, sir?
Yeah, it started at 10 o'clock.
And amidst Donald Trump's escalating threats, now the world is planning to deal with it strategically. In fact, France is all set to host a meeting, a Strait of Hormuz shipping meeting on Friday. The French presidency has now come out with their declaration. They are saying that Emmanuel Macron, French president, and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer will be chairing a virtual conference on Friday in Paris for countries that are willing to contribute to the defensive multilateral mission to restore freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. Rishabh, what does this really mean?
Well, see, one thing is very clear. Europeans want a situation where Strait of Hormuz could be open and free navigation can be ensured but there should be no military action to do this. So they want quote unquote diplomatic answer to it, and that's what France and United Kingdom are doing. Remember, the first meeting took place where about 50 countries, including India, did meet and discuss that how Strait of Hormuz should be opened and what all diplomatically solutions are there on the table that can be looked at. US, while wants it to be done militarily, NATO forces to come in. Key NATO allies, France, Germany, Australia, for that matter, UK, all these countries have very categorically given a one-line answer that no, we are not going to fight your war, and we will not intervene militarily in Strait of Hormuz, or for that matter in Iran. And that is something that's a stand from almost every NATO country in Europe. And now, when it has all boiled down to opening of Strait of Hormuz, one thing is very clear, that Europe does not want to do it militarily, and they want things to happen diplomatically. And that's the reason that this meeting has now been called.
But is it possible without diplomatic agreements at level of United States? That's the big question. Meanwhile, as this blockade begins, China has issued a strong warning to the US as well. Chinese defense minister has cautioned Washington against interfering in Beijing's bilateral ties with Iran. He made it clear that China will continue to honor its trade and energy agreements with Iran and expects no external interference. Importantly, China has also asserted that Strait of Hormuz remains open for its ships, backing the free flow of maritime traffic through the region. Beijing has also opposed the blockade, warning of its potential global economic impact and urging all sides to maintain stability and avoid further escalation. Even key allies, like Rishabh just pointed out, are now refusing to back US's position on Strait of Hormuz. Reports are suggesting that Saudi Arabia is pushing back against US naval blockade plan, urging them to drop the move and return to talks instead. Saudis reportedly pressing for de-escalation, warning that rising tensions in the Persian Gulf could spiral out of control. Saudi officials are also said to fear that Iran could retaliate by targeting or disrupting other key shipping routes in this particular region. Now, which are these countries? Rishabh just explained to us that key NATO nations have also now repeatedly been saying that this is not our war. We are suffering the consequences of it, but we do not want to be involved in it militarily, at least, and which is why that meeting is going to take place on this Friday in Paris as well. But which are those countries that have completely distanced themselves from Trump's shenanigans? United Kingdom refused to join US's blockade, earlier had also refused to provide their bases for US military. British Prime Minister has said the focus is on keeping the Strait of Hormuz open for all navigation. Australia is another partner that they have said we are not going to join US's military efforts to choke Iranian ports. Anthony Albanese has called for de-escalation on the part of United States. When it comes to Spain, they have vetoed NATO operation targeting Strait of Hormuz. So what really does it mean? What are the possibilities? What's next in this ongoing deadlock? What could happen if this blockade continues or escalates further? Here are some of the scenarios that Times Now has explored. First possibility, India and Asia may face energy shortage, because remember, while so far India has negotiated with Iran, maintained relations diplomatically and managed to secure all its energy needs, that condition might change. Second possibility, oil price hike eventually affecting global markets, because the tougher this navigation becomes, the pricier it is going to get. Third possibility, mine warfare and a naval confrontation threat. Remember, Iran has said that they had laid undersea mines and now have forgotten where they had been laid. So that could also pose a threat when it comes to this. Now, where does it stand when it comes to Hormuz war game right now? This is basically a chronology of how Iran has used this marine choke point as its biggest leverage in this West Asia war in confrontation with the United States. On the 1st of March, when we saw barely 2 days after the war broke out, the first thing they did was to block Strait of Hormuz. On the 11th of March, US destroyed Iran's mine-laying vessels, and ever since we have seen that this particular choke point has also proven to be Iran's biggest leverage and US's biggest irritant. We've got more developments coming in right now. Third Iran-linked tanker has entered Hormuz. That's the breaking development that we have learned right now. This particular tanker is bound for UAE's Hamria port. This is the third Iran-linked tanker that has entered the Gulf via the Strait of Hormuz today. This data has been revealed as per shipping data numbers. The Panama-flagged Peace Gulf is heading to UAE. Rishabh, explain to our viewers how this is significant given the current geopolitical scenario.
Well, one thing is very clear. No one but Iran have strategic edge over Strait of Hormuz, and US can announce blockade and put USS Abraham Lincoln at about 200 kilometers off Iranian coast. But when it comes to Strait of Hormuz, the main key of Strait of Hormuz will remain with Iran. And Iran has learned it very hard way. And in last 40 days, they have learned it the way that if they keep this key in their hand and they have an iron lock on Strait of Hormuz, the world will negotiate. US ended up negotiating. The negotiations did fall apart, but
Okay.
JD Vance flew half of the globe to
Okay,